Okay, let's go.
Good day, everybody. I heard my voice. Threw me off. It is currently like 4 o'clock in the morning, almost 5 o'clock. I've been working on this script. It took me a lot longer than I'd like. It's because I've been busy. My mind, the ADD has been kicking so bad. So I've been teasing it. I've been letting y'all know we are going to be talking about certain people. And I don't know how else to put it, but these people are the divine, the deities, the old gods, the Aztec mythology, the one and only Los Dioses Azteca. I can hear my voice. Let me pause that real quick. Bam. Okay, that's better. Whew. Okay. Oh, no. I think I paused. Did I pause it? Does that control this? I don't know. Anyways, I guess I got to leave it on. So let's begin. This has been a difficult one, and bear with me, the pronunciation is going to be ridiculous because y'all know how I do with Nahuatl. Okay, so the Aztec gods are a difficult. Oh my God, I can't talk like this. Go away. I'm just going to have to trust that it's going through perfectly fine. Anyways, the Aztec gods are a difficult subject for me. Like I said in the last episode, I cannot pronounce their names. I cannot speak Nahuatl, but I'm going to try my hardest to pronounce their names. The list of gods is extensive, around 200 gods and deities. The Aztec or the Mexica placed these gods and deities into three different categories, with the first being the heaven or the sky, the second one is the rain, fertility, and agriculture, and the last but not least, war and sacrifice. Let's start off with the father of the Aztecs, it begins with an H, the Huitzilopochtli, Huitzilopochtli. Like I said, these pronunciations are going to be difficult for me. When the Great Migration happened to the Aztecs, this god advised them to establish their capital city of Tenochtitlan, the god of war and sacrifice, his name meaning hummingbird of the left or the south. His temple was on top of the pyramid Templo Mayor within the city. It was decorated with skulls and painted red to represent blood. His appearance was that of a hummingbird or a warrior wearing a helmet adorned with the feathers of hummingbirds. He wielded the fire deity Mixcoatl, Cxixiuhcoatl, that's the only part I got right, as a weapon, which made him also be regarded as the fire god. Since being the god of war, the Aztecs made frequent sacrifices to him. Legend says that those that have died in battle or women who died in childbirth are said to become a part of his group for 4 years before being reborn as hummingbirds. The Aztecs, before settling in their homeland of Tenochtitlan, had left Aztlan, Aztlan, the original home of the Aztec, where they lived under the rule of an elite people known as the Azteca Chico Mostoca. The god Huitzilopochtli had advised them to abandon this place and to find a new home. He also told them that from that day forward they should call themselves the Mexica. I'm going to refer them as the Aztec, but that's why in some of my posts and some of the things I always put the Aztec/Mexica. He had guided them to Malinalco under the charge of his sister Mictlantecuhtli. The Aztecs or the Mexica resented her ruling and had asked Huitzilopochtli for further assistance. The god then proceeded to put his sister to sleep and ordered them to leave. When she stirred from her slumber and realized that she was alone, she became angry and desired revenge. In her rage, she birthed her son named Copil. When he became of age, he confronted his uncle Huitzilopochtli and tried to kill him. He then proceeded to rip Copil's heart out and threw it into Lake Texcoco. After some time had passed, he told the Aztec to find Copil's heart and to build their city over it. The way they knew where the heart was located would be a sign of a majestic eagle on a nopal or cactus eating a snake. Not a cactus eating a snake, but the eagle sitting on a nopal, which is also a cactus eating a snake. That's also the origin of the Mexican flag. This god is one of the important gods in Mexican culture and history. His origin is separated into two different stories. The oldest story is that of Huitzilopochtli, is the last of four sons born to Mictlantecuhtli. He was born without flesh and only bones for the first 600 years. After that, he and his siblings began the process of creating the world and the laws of nature. The second story states that his mother was a fierce goddess that was impregnated by a ball of feathers as she was sweeping on Mount Coatepec, which is Serpent Hill near Tula Hidalgo. Her other children were enraged by this, the 400 brothers and sisters, known as Sintzonuetzuna, and the female deity Coyolokwaki. Jesus Christ, man. I chose a good one, right? The brothers all formed one being, which is Centzonuitzna, and the female deity, one sister, Coyolxauhqui. Whew, that is a lot, isn't it? They conspired to kill her. As they were conspiring, Huitzilopochtli burst out of his mother's womb, clad in full warrior armor. Defending his mother, he proceeded to behead his sister, whose body lay at the foot of the mountain, and he also chased off his brothers, who became the stars in the sky. So if you go to the temple of this god, the stones and the monuments below represent his sister's body. In some mythology, he is seen as a representation of the sun and his siblings as the stars and the moon in the night sky. The Aztecs believed that this is why the sun chases the moon and the stars, giving us night and day. That's why his temples are everywhere. He was one of the main gods, remember. They also made tribute to him for the blessings of a new day to give him strength, for if he does not have enough strength for the chase, they will destroy his mother and also the world. Earlier I had mentioned sacrifices. Let's elaborate on that next. Since he was the god of war, he demanded both ritual and self-sacrifice. To self-sacrifice was to do what is known as bloodletting, no matter your social status, age, or gender. Animals were also used for private sacrifices, but for the ritual public sacrifices, which was more important, it was normally prisoners of war. It was done with great pageantry, being paraded around town, ending at the top of the pyramid, done by a high priest. The way they acquired these sacrifices were due to the fierceness of the Aztec warrior and their ability on the battlefield to only wound and not kill their enemies, because they were needed for a higher calling. Now, the Aztecs were a feared warrior race. They were a tribe of warriors. They had great abilities. They were able to disarm and bring in their enemy effectively. The act was done with a ceremonial dagger that the priest would use to remove the still beating heart of the sacrifice, and they would hold it up high to show the god their tribute, thus giving him strength to continue the fight, to keep his siblings at bay, making blood the powerful source of energy. So let's move on to the next one, because we got like 4 or 5 to cover. I'm not going to try to rush through it, but I do eventually want to go to bed. So let's begin. The next deity is Xochitl. Xolotl. I've mentioned something similar, the Xoloscuincle, Mexico's oldest breed of dog, the dog that guides the souls of those that have passed to the other side. In the last episode, I noted that the Cholo dog used to be sacrificed when someone passed to be able to guide them to the other side. This is the god that created the dog. Xotlo is the twin brother of Quetzalcoatl, being the canine twin son of the Virgin Chimalman, the personification of Venus. He is the personification of Venus, the evening star, and associated with the heavens fire. Another creature named after this being is the axolotl, the salamander, the god of fire and lightning, his children being twins, monsters, death, misfortune, sickness, and deformities. The sinister god of monstrosities wears the spiral twisted jewel and ear ornament of his brother, Quetzalcoatl. He was tasked to protect the sun from the dangers of the other side, which is Mictlan. As the twin to Quetzalcoatl, he carries his conch like, oh, that's a big word, Ehecalcozcatl. Ehecalcacozcatl. That is a long word, and I know I didn't pronounce it right. Or wind jewels. He accompanied his brother to Mictlan, the land of the dead, to retrieve the bones of those who inhabited the old world to be able to create new life for the present world, which is how the Aztecs believe we came to be. This deity is what guides the sun through the night. The way it is believed to work is that he guides the sun to the underworld, protecting it as they travel. This god or deity is also blind due to the fact that at the beginning all the gods sacrificed parts of themselves to the new sun, but he withdrew from his sacrifice. He began to weep, so much so that his eyes fell out. The story goes that when the sun was created, it did not move. The wind god, angered by this, began killing the other gods to make the sun move. Now, I said they self-sacrificed, right? They didn't stop it. They didn't do anything. They allowed it to happen because it was going to make the sun move. Chotlo, fearing this, transformed into a corn plant with two stalks, which is known as Xolotl, Xolotl, a double maguey plant, which is Mixcoatl, and the axolotl. This becoming known as the Master Transformer. He was the master of disguise. Doing this made him into that, right? In the end, though, he was discovered and killed. He is often depicted with the head of a dog, body of a skeleton, with reverse feet. The body is adorned with the chest plate of his twin. Other incarnations are the Xoloscuincle or the axolotl. That's number 2 down. I feel like I'm going through this a little too fast. I gotta slow my pace down a bit, you know? Next up from the pantheon of the Aztec gods and deities is Chotlo's twin, the most known god of this mythology, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent. That almost sounds like a wrestling intro. This god is seen as the god of agriculture, depending on what source you look into. He's also the god of wind, rain, and the bringer of knowledge, inventor of books. Closely associated with the rain god Tlaloc, depending on the culture, he was also the god of the morning and evening stars. In the Tula culture, that was in the 9th through the 12th century, and then from the 14th through the 16th century, he was the protector of goldsmiths and other craftsmen. Being the morning star and the evening star meant that he was associated with death and rebirth. Like I mentioned earlier, he and his brother went to the land of the dead, Mictlan, to collect the bones that he anointed with his blood to create man. That's also why the Aztecs were also called the children of the sun or the people of the sun. This kind of mentality can also be seen in Native American culture. In the Navajo belief, the sun is a male named Johanai, Johonaaei, along with the moon Tlehon, Tlehonaaei. Now, that's the female. Now, I got to put this prefaces in there. I do not speak any of these other languages, so if I got it wrong and the pronunciation is wrong, do not come at me. I'm dumb, okay? I just got to put that out there right now. Believing the sun to be the most powerful deity amongst all creation here on earth and in the universe. With that belief, many tribes call themselves people of the sun. The Wampanoag nation are the people of the first light. The people of the Tabeguach band of the Ute tribe are the people of the Sun Mountain. I can rattle off a few more names, but another reason I keep saying this, this is another reason that I keep saying we are one people, is that we may not believe the same thing, but if you dig deep enough into the root of our world, it's all the same, you know? That's why I keep saying we are one people. We are not to be divided. We are one. Again, back to Quetzalcoatl. He was the priest king of the Toltec ruler of the capital. Never one to ask for a human sacrifice, he only wanted snakes, birds, and butterflies. Then one day, the god of the night, Tezcatlipoca, Tezcatlipoca, drove him out with black magic. Once driven out, he roamed the coast of the divine water. Excuse me. Again, depending on the version you read about, he either immolated himself on a pyre, becoming the planet Venus, or he embarked on a raft made of snakes and sailed away over the eastern horizon. This is where things get a little dicey for the Aztecs. It is believed that this is the reason Hernan Cortez was able to invade Montezuma so easily, because he believed he was Quetzalcoatl returning from the east. In their calendar, they believed that he was going to be gone for one rotation, or what is known as a reed, R-E-E-D. That's what they called it. And Cortez appeared exactly at the 1 year mark. Since he was closely regarded with Tlaloc, well, stop, I'll pause right there. That's, he came back he didn't come back, but that's why it was believed that Montezuma allowed Cortez in. That's where the invasion first started, was because he was like, he's coming in armor, the helmet and everything closely resembled what was believed that he looked like. So they thought he was a god returning. So let's move on to the next one. We got like 3 more to cover. Oh man, since he was closely regarded with Tlaloc, Tlaloc, that's the next god we cover. This god is seen as the god of fertility and water, since without water you cannot have life. He is a god to be feared, but not for any malicious reason, but for his mastery of the rain, hail, thunder, and lightning. But if you do accrue his wrath, you could be suffering droughts, you could have hurricanes, things that he controls the wind, the water, so lightning, hail, thunder, rain, anything that has to do with the storm, that is him. He is believed to reside in the sacred mountain Cerro Tlaloc, making it the most sacred location. His followers are amongst the oldest and most abundant in ancient Mexico. His appearance ranges from butterflies, jaguars, and serpents. And also the flower that is used in Dia de los Muertos, the marigold, is a big part of his ceremonies too, and was burned as incense. It makes sense because he's also one of the gods of life, right? Fertility, rebirth. So that kind of makes sense. His depiction has fangs either in sets of 3 or 4 of the same size with a split tongue, and most times carrying a vessel of water. So his depiction is that of your standard issue god, right? Your standard issue god. But except he has fangs. In the Nahuatl tongue, his name means storm god. His shrines are at the top of the mountain. Most gods have a steady symbol, but Tlaloc has many due to the confusion on his appearance, ranging from butterflies, the Quetzal bird, down to the eye of a lizard. So he has butterflies, Quetzals, jaguars, snakes, symbology too, and the eye of a lizard. Because he's one of the oldest gods, he gets confused for a lot of different things. One of his biggest offerings that was found in the temple at Tenochtitlan was a complete jaguar skeleton. The jaguar was regarded as the ultimate power symbol. So he got one of the top tier sacrifices and gifts at his temple, or at the temple that had a part dedicated to him, because the temple had layers all the way to the top. His confusion is so great that there was a statue that weighed over 186 tons that was believed to be of him. But some scholars argue that it was either him or his sister. They can't figure out who it was exactly. Again, he's one of the oldest gods. This god has more information than the others that I have discussed, while when he was in rule, he did not require human sacrifices. That was not the case in the great city of Tenochtitlan. Atop one of the great temples was a shrine, where there was a bowl placed there that contained the hearts, that were sacrificed in his name. The priests in charge were called Quetzalcoatl Tlaloc. Quetzalcoatl Tlaloc Tlamasqua. The last word is Tlamacazqui. Those that worshipped him were not cremated in ceremony, but instead they were buried in the earth with seeds in them, with blue paint adorning their faces, or their skull, or their forehead. They were dressed in a paper outfit, and they were also buried with a digging stick so they can plant the seeds that they carried upon them. During one of his biggest celebrations, one of the festivals that is dedicated to this god, which ranged from the 12th of February until March 3rd atop the Cerro Tlaloc, was child sacrifice. Now this is where it gets kind of dark. The children chosen were dressed in the style of the god. So in other words, they were made to look like the god in the way he was depicted. As they made their way to the top, they were followed by dancers and priests. There they had to spend the night accompanied by the priests. Not in any weird way, but the priests were there to watch them. They were making sure that nothing happened to the kids, that they didn't run away or anything. But a priest couldn't leave either, because if he left, he was shunned by society. I'll get to that in a second. Though the kids were not usually of high society, when they were to be sacrificed, they were placed on flowers and feathers. Then they had their hearts removed by the priests. If they cried, it was seen as a positive sign that year's harvest was to be bountiful. If the children did not cry, it was seen as a bad omen, which means that year their harvest were going to be horrible, which meant that a lot of people could die because, that's how they survived, was the harvest. I keep saying they because the number of children sacrificed was 7. Now, in Aztec mythology, there's a lot of stuff that has to do with numerology, symbology, things like that. I'm not going to get too much into that because if I do, that's a whole different tangent, right? Usually slave children or the second born of nobility. So if you were the firstborn, you're good. But if you were the middle child or the second child, you had to worry a little bit, right? In total, there were 4 different festivals relating to Tlaloc, 2 of them involving child sacrifice. One of them was where they made a person out of dough or clay. I think it was dough. It was made and sacrificed in a similar fashion where they would cut out the heart, and it was made with like pumpkin seeds and all sorts of different stuff. It was sacrifice made of dough. I couldn't find that many stories of the great god due to his history and the grand confusion surrounding his appearance. The stories could be mixed throughout all of the gods. So he could appear in different stuff, but I couldn't find anything that directly correlated with him. Like there's different stories of the first 2 gods. This god, not this god, but the next god. They had stories, but this one, it was just a bunch of stuff about the way his sacrifice worked, what he did, and things like that. I got to take a breather sometimes. With some of the gods that we have discussed, the first 2, having visited the land of the dead, Mictlan, Mictlan, we're going to discuss the ruler of Mictlan, his name is Mictlantecuhtli, Mictlantecuhtlu, the Lord of the Dead, and his wife Mictlantecuhtli, who the only part I ever get right is that waddle part, right? Mictlantecuhtl. For some reason, spelling these names, these last 2 gods, I wanted to go into that old Mickey Mouse song. Mictlantecuhtli. Just the spelling, it triggered something in my brain. My ADHD and my ADD, just gets triggered sometimes. They ruled over Mictlan together. They lived in a windowless house. He was associated with owls, spiders, and bats in the direction south. Whew. I know I've told the story 2 other times here. The third, and this is going to be the 3rd time. Mictlantecuhtli, not his wife, but him, tried to stop or delay Quetzalcoatl on his journey for the bones of the creatures from the previous world of the 4th sun. creatures from the previous world of the fourth sun. Since he was in Mictlan, the Lord gave him a few tasks. So, Quetzalcoatl was given tasks before he could leave. Now, he could only take the bones if he traveled around the underworld 4 times while blowing into a conch shell trumpet. But Mictlantecuhtli gave him an ordinary shell, so it would not make a sound. But Quetzalcoatl was a little bit more clever than that. He got the worms to drill holes and bees to reside inside the shell so it would sound like a trumpet. Not to be outsmarted, he let him take the bones and had his assistant travel ahead and dig a pit. So he had an underling. So he told his underling, like, hey, he's about to leave. Go forward, dig a hole, stop this man. He's not leaving. So they dug a pit, or he dug a pit for Quetzalcoatl. Quetzalcoatl approached the pit and got distracted by an owl, or startled by an owl. And he fell into the pit and dropped the bones and they broke. But he managed to get out of the hole, collect the bones, and escape Mictlan. He delivered the bones to the goddess, another name, Cihuacoatl, Cihuacoatl, where the bones were then mixed with his blood, and from that came the first man and woman, which is where we come from, according to the Aztec mythology. Ooh, man. He is another top tier god due to everyone destined to meet him one day. So no matter who you are, no matter your status in life or anything, you are destined to meet this god, the god of Mictlan, the lord of the underworld. There's only a few exceptions. The only ones to not meet him were those who suffered a violent death, warriors, mothers who died during childbirth. They were sent with the first god that I talk about. I'm not going to try to pronounce the name again, but the one that begins with an H. Yes, he was a warrior god whose representation was the hummingbird. Like I said, you spent 4 years with them, and then you're reborn as a hummingbird. These are the people that went up there with them, right? And also those that died in floods or storms. Again, the previous god, Tlaloc, Tlaloc. So that was the exception. If you died in flood conditions, storms that had to do with water, or if you were a warrior or you died violently, in other words, like being mauled by an animal or something back in the day, or if you were a mother who died during childbirth, because that was seen as the ultimate sacrifice. You died while giving life. That is the ultimate sacrifice of the Aztecs. The Aztecs did not believe in a specific place like heaven or hell, like the Catholics, Christians, like we do nowadays. How there's a heaven, hell, earth, whatever you want to call it, a higher place and a lower place, right? They didn't believe in that. They were, whatever you are, you're going to the same place. All souls descended into Mictlan to travel the 9 layers in a 4-year journey, where they would become extinct in the deepest part. Now, there's also the 9 layers of hell. I can't remember what it's called. It's a famous piece of literature, Dante's Inferno. So again, the Aztec mythology, the whatever you want to call it, the old gods are spread out throughout the world. It doesn't matter where you're from. Again, we are one people. The 9 layers of Mictlan, and then you're done, right? The 9 layers of hell, even though that's a top and bottom situation. But again, that's a whole different story. But they have similarities throughout history and throughout the different cultures in our lives. With curly black hair and powerful eyes to see into the darkness of Mictlan. That is his description. There is a sculpture that was found known as the Disc of Death. It is a partially destroyed image of the god adorned with a pleated paper headdress. It's all made of stone, but that's what it's called, right? The face is that of a skull with its tongue sticking out. Again, depending on the historical references that you look into, it is said that a part of his ritual sacrifices included cannibalism, with human flesh being consumed in and around the temple. He has multiple names, which are Ixputztec, Ixpuztx, meaning broken face, or Nextepua, Nextepehua. My voice is leaving a little bit, which means scatterer of ashes. And last is Tzontemoc, Tzontemoc, which is he who lowers his head. Oh man, I gotta take a little sip of water here. Where's my water bottle? I got tea. This is a lot, right? This is what I do. I find as much information as I can. Let's continue. I think this is the last one. Maybe one more after this. I can't remember. I can't remember even though I just finished writing this script. But again, it's like 5:30 in the morning. We continue with Mixcoatl, Mixcoatl, the god of the hunt. He was the deity to the Otomi people, Otomi, the Chichimecs, and others that claim to be descendants of the Chichimecs. Seen wearing a black mask with red and white pinstripes painted on his body, sharing similar traits with Tlahuascualpantecuhtli. That's a long one. Let me spell that one out. Tlahuicalpantecuhtli. Jesus. The Lord of the Dawn, God of the Morning Star, as well as his mother, which is Itzpapalotli, Itzpapalotl, goddess of infant mortality. He can be distinguished by his hunting gear and arrows, and often carrying a net or basket to carry his game in. Depending on the stories again, he was one of 4 children, born to the god Tonacatecutli, Tonacatecutli, meaning the Lord of Sustenance, and Cihuacuatli, Chihuacoatl, the goddess of fertility and midwives. Him being the god of sorcerers, rulers, and warriors, they worshipped as the red aspect. He was worshipped as the red aspect of the god Tezcatlipoca. So that's a lot of different names, right? But Tezcatlipoca is the same as Mixcoatl. I forgot his name for a second. Mixcoatl. It's the same, right? Or they're this one and the same. It is said that Tezcatlipoca transformed into Mixcoatl and created the fire drill, which is the bow that you use to create fire, by spinning in the heavens and bringing fire to the people. So that's how we got fire. Being the father to 400 sons known as Sinson, Huitznahua, Huitznahua, who ended up having their hearts ripped out and devoured by Huitzilopochtli. We've come full circle with the first story, right? All the gods are interconnected. Being the main god, or I'm gonna skip the spot. I skipped the part. With a name that means cloud serpent. Being the main god of the Chichimecs and their descendants, he was later replaced as the main god by the Aztecs with his son Huitzilopochtli, the war and sun god. His worship and sacrifices were violent. The hunters were dressed as the god. They made arrows and set ritual fires to commemorate the gifts he bestowed upon them. The children danced with his priestesses and gave them cakes. The sacrifices that were made were bloody. It was normally a man and a woman. The woman was violently slain like an animal, her head being struck with a rock until she was half unconscious, and then her throat was slit, and then she was beheaded. The man would then take her head and show the crowd before he had his heart ceremoniously removed and sacrificed. Another festival included an actual hunt and a mock hunt. So 2 different hunts, right? An actual hunt and a mock hunt that used prisoners of war dressed as deer. Can you imagine you go to war or you're fighting with another tribe and then all of a sudden you get caught and then they put a deer skin on you and some fake antlers and they said, go. and now you're being hunted. To end this festival, there was a feast and another round of sacrifices. And this time it was impersonators of the gods. So this was a big thing too. They always had a representation. They always had someone there that was supposed to be the god on earth. They had god impersonators. Kind of like we have celebrity impersonators, but these are more important. One of the Nahuatl legends states that a pair of hunters, Mimimich and Xiuhnel, Xiuhnel, were out on the hunt one day, and they spotted a pair of two-headed deer. They chased the deer all day, unable to catch them. When they stopped to rest, two beautiful women joined them. Unable to resist temptation, Xiuhnel, Xiuhnel, made love to one of the deer women, who then proceeded to kill him. Running for his life, Mimimich started a fire and ran away. Unable to escape, the Huitzilopochtli followed him. That was her name. He was saved by divine intervention when a barrel of cactus fell from the sky and pinned her to the ground. Mimimich led the fire lords to her and set her ablaze. And in her place was 4 flints. Mimich took the white flint, which contained her soul, and transformed into Mixcoatl, the great warrior hunter, which is how he came to be in one of these stories, right? In another version of the story, it wasn't 2 warriors, it was 3 warriors, and they captured the two-headed deer. Mixcoatl went on a warpath with his catch, defeating all that lay before him. So this two-headed deer granted him power. He could not be defeated as long as he had this deer with him. Then one day it was taken from him, and he lost his power. Not all was lost, though. He did gain a son. The deer was stolen while he was conceiving Topilitzin Quetzalcoatl. So that's how he's the god, the father of a lot of these gods. We have covered a lot about the gods. We cannot cover all of them. There are around 200 different gods. We have covered as much as we can, from Tlaloc, the rain god, Huitzilopochtli, the god of war, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, Mictlantecuhtli, or Tecuhtli, the lord of the underworld, and finally, we ended with Mixcoatl, essentially the king of the gods, the first of all the other ones we talked about. So without him, there wouldn't be these other ones, right? It's also the same thing in Greek and Roman mythology, how there's Zeus, but he had a father. Can't remember his name. My mind went blank on what his father's name was. I can't remember. It'll come to me eventually. No, my brain's, it's trying to make the connection, but I can't. The first one of all the other ones we talked about. The Aztecs had many beliefs. Their calendar was comprised of one solar year, which was 365 days, and a sacred year, which was 260 days, and 2 yearly cycles running parallel, producing a larger cycle of 52 years. It gets complicated, right? Because that's a difficult thing to understand. 365 days, which is 1 year that we have now. Then on top of that, they got an additional 260 days. And then somewhere in between that, there's 2 years running at the same time. They believed that there were 4 eras. The first destroyed by flood, which was the era of the water sun, followed by the sun of the earth, which was destroyed by an earthquake. Then the wind sun, which was destroyed by a giant, with only Quetzalcoatl remaining and creating us. Because he remained, he went down to Mictlan, and then came back and created humans, the people, the first man and woman. And that leads us into our current sun, which is the sun of fire, which is said to end in either a large fire or war. Could this be the thing to come? Only those that are in tune will truly know what will happen. The earth has been destroyed by water, which is also in other cultures and stories like the journey of Gilgamesh or Noah's Ark, which are also 2 stories that are parallel to each other also. The Earth has also undergone a massive meteor strike which ended the dinosaurs. This could be seen as the earthquake that ended them, and soon after that, man came forth. Some could argue that the wind sun could be the eruption of the volcano of Tamborum, and that created something known as the ash covered the earth, which created something known as the year without summer. Most of the world's great disasters could be argued that the Aztec predicted, which is why it was believed that when the calendar exited its last cycle, the world was set to end. Remember when a couple years ago, 2012, well, that's a long time ago, not a couple years ago, there was that whole thing like, this is when the Aztec calendar runs out. There's no more after this. This could be it. This is why it was believed that, because they had predicted so much up to this point. So we could be on borrowed time, waiting for the great fire or a great war. Nobody knows for sure, but all I have to say now is stay spooky, everybody. And until next time. And you know what? I'm finally going to go to bed. I will edit this in the morning. I'll see y'all next time, guys. And y'all in the chat, thank you for joining me. I try to answer y'all as best as I can, but I got to push through with my script, guys. See you next time, too. Bye.